Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from May 26, 2023, and I'm recording this on Thanksgiving Day, November 23rd, 2023. As always, I give you those dates so you know when this information is actually most relevant. This week we're only looking back at the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. CBSI did not do a list this week. Not sure exactly why. I think it was just personal reasons for the guy that normally did the list. But anyway, so only 10 books to talk about. But let's dig into those 10 books, see what we can learn, see what made these books hot, and what factors have affected them since to make it worth going after them then, or if you were better off being patient. So let's see what we can learn. First up, we have Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser Halcyon Legacy #1. Easy for me to say. And this was hitting the list because the hotel this was whole built around was this hotel they had at Disney that was like you were staying on a starship and all this kind of stuff, turned into a massive failure. It just didn't, having a crew that was constantly in character and everything else, it just didn't work the way they wanted to. So there was lots of sales on this, but it was only going for $4, which is cover price. 9.8 was only going for $50. So even back then I was like, whatever. And it's still basically a $4 to $10 book. So we're going to call it a steady I'll be back. There was no reason to chase it then. You can get it for basically the same prices right now. Next, we have Adventures of Superman, number 500. The first appearance of John Henry, Steel, Superboy, Cyborg Superman, the Eradicator. This is all part of course, the Death of Superman event. And this is another one that was still basically going for super cheap back then. There was just lots of sales. I think one of the characters was being reintroduced or something. I forget what it was exactly, what was the thing. But yeah, it was a $3 book then. It's a $2 to $10 book now. 9.8 under 100. Same place. Another steady book. Not a book that's going for a whole lot. All right. Next, we have New Teen Titans #1. The second appearance of Raven, Starfire, and Cyborg. And the start of the Perez Marv Wolfman run. I guess technically DC Comics present, but the actual start of the comic run here. Back then, raw copies were going for $40, 9.8, a little over 400, because the show, after 4 or 5 seasons, was ending. So there's a lot of buzz around the book. Now, it's basically went back to what this book long-term has been, which is, $15 to $40 book raw, $175 to $250 for 9.8. So yeah, it turned into a trap, particularly on the 9.8 side from what it was as the show was ending. But really, it just returned back to what the long-term value on this book has been. All right, next we have Spider-Man 2099 meets Spiderman from 1995, the first meeting of these two characters. And this was basically the week before Across the Spider-Verse launched, so that was why this book was hitting the list. $12 average sales, 9.8, 120, and now it's basically still at an average of about $12 for raw sales. No recent 9.8 sales. So another steady, call it I'll be back. All the books have kind of fallen in this because they weren't really going for that much to begin with, 3 of these 4 books. So haven't really dropped any. They're just kind of in that same range. All right, next we have Captain America 117, the first appearance of the Falcon. Back then, raw copies were $50 to $250. 9.4 went for $26.40. These are the actual values I looked up back then and not their loose average of $1,700 they were talking about, which made no sense. Now raw copies are $75 to $250. So basically that same range, 9.2, $16 to $2,100. So not that much down from that 9.4. No recent 9.4 sale or higher grade sale to compare that 9.4 to. So we're going to call this steady and worth it. This is obviously all the build up to, at some point, we're going to get Captain America 4 with Sam again as Captain America. So yeah, that's what continues to drive this book. Plus, it's just a really good book and a good character. So yeah, it's been steady and worth it. So yeah, very odd week. Almost all steady and worth it here to start. Or steady and I'll be back to start us out. And we got one more of those right here. Meet the Scrolls, #1. first appearance of Gaia. This was pre-Secret Invasion. And this book was only going for, even then, even though she was going to be, we had confirmation that's who Amelia Clark was playing. It was still on an $8 book back then, $80, 9.8, basically what it is right now. So another steady and I'll be back. It just didn't have anywhere really to go down. It's still a key. So yeah, it's just continued to stay in that same range. All right. Next we have Miss Marvel #1, the first solo appearance of Kamala Khan. This book back then was initial trailers for the Marvels and everything else. $60 for raw copy, which is still way down from some of the heights this book had previously reached in the lead up to her TV show and everything else. 9.8 for just over 100, and that's basically where we're at still on the 9.8s. The raw copies have backed up a little bit, 25 to 50, and that's with the movie just coming out, although the movie has not done very well. I did go see it finally, after being sick and missing it the first 2 weekends. I did go see it the other day. I had fun. I thought it was a good time. I thought she was probably one of the better parts of it. But clearly it's not done well at the box office. But yeah, so if you are a Kamala Khan fan, now's probably a good time to get into these books, or over the next couple months. So, all right, next we have Dark Horse Presents #36, the first Alien versus Predator. And there was rumors there was going to be an anime series on this coming. Don't think it's happened yet. But anyway, this anime series was based on this crossover was coming, so that's why this was hitting the list. $25 for raw sales, just under 300 for 9.8. And this has turned into a trap from those values, 5 to 15, 9.8 to 150 to 175. Yeah, this is backed way, way up. I don't know if the series is ever going to happen or not. Supposedly it was ready to go back then, but we ain't seen it. Of course, there's also been strikes and everything else since then. So, 2 books left here. As I said, we're just doing a Tom list this week, so only 10 books total. We have Amazing Spider-Man, the movie, #1. And this was hitting the list because Andrew Garfield was doing another signing event at CGC. So raw copies were going for $60. 9.8s were up to $350 as people try to get really good copies to send in to get his signature on. This was a hard one to judge because call it and I'll be back, call it a dumpster fire, because now it's a $20 book to get. But if you got the signature, maybe not a dumpster fire, although I think what people were paying plus what his signature cost is, I don't think people are actually getting that, because there aren't the signed ones. There's a bunch of signed ones listed, but they're not really selling. So I don't know that people are going to be able to get their money back, but it's definitely a dumpster fire if you just bought it just because. So yeah. And then our last book this week was ROM Space Knight #1. And this was hitting the list because they were reprinting the whole run in an omnibus. That may be out by now. It was being solicited back then. Maybe not. I don't know exactly how soon it was coming. But anyway, that was why I was hitting the list. Raw copies were up to $35. 9.8 hit $260. No recent 9.8 sales to compare to, but raw copies are now 5 to 25. So another book that turned into a trap. So those are the 10 books. We ended up having 5 steady, kind of around the same value, 5 downs, including a couple that were way, way down. But overall, a little better week than normal. But really it had to do with having 3 or 4 books that just were going for very low values, even when they were hot. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will catch you next time. Later.